Andrew.
Hi.
Thanks for meeting me today.
Not a problem.
Okay, so today's meeting is basically just to help you understand what we're going to be doing and what's coming up. So the first thing I was going to show you is the standards and how I get marked.
Okay.
So it basically goes 1 through 4 for each thing. You're used to the American system, so you kind of already understand this, but 4 being the best, 1 being the lowest. And then it kind of gets averaged out. So each week, each time I submit a video, I'm supposed to be focusing on making sure that my teaching exemplifies a certain standard.
Okay.
So while I should always be doing my best teaching, and all of these standards should be part of my teaching, I'll be a little bit overboard about one of the specific standards to show that we understand this part of teaching.
Sure.
So I'm going to leave these with you just so you have them, and because now they're printed beautifully in color, so they have to get used more. So standard 1 is basically about learner development. So it's personalizing lessons, using different, I've kind of made some notes, so you don't have to read all of this right now. But it's about using different methods and personalizing the lesson for your students specifically, whether that's one student that has difficulties or the class as a whole, you know, their strong points or their weak points or what they've already done in the past, maybe slipping in some of that review into the lesson when you can. So basically just, you know, still doing all of the lesson that you're supposed to do, but gearing it towards your learners.
And given that the class makeup is half second language speakers and half not,
exactly.
Do you think that's going to be challenging to meet everyone's needs, considering there's a range of ability?
I don't think so, because I think the lessons are pretty standard, and then you can choose, like, the students that maybe have a higher ability, you can ask them the harder questions, or you can push them a little bit more, and then you can do the easier parts of the lesson, really focus on the ELL students. Then differentiation is also another standard, which comes in a little bit later. They kind of overlap a little bit. Standard 2 is learning differences, and this is actually more about cultures. So this is, you know, why we have, when I was creating lessons, I made sure to use different skin color cartoons, because I know that not all of our students are Chinese, so it wouldn't be very fair for them to see only, you know, Chinese people in the lessons. So I've already put in this diversity, and also making sure that the students value each other's diversity.
Okay.
Standard 3.
I'm sorry, I have a question about that last
Yeah.
one. Is that going to be specifically for a social studies lesson, or is that too easy? Am I supposed to find how you're doing diversity in a math class as well?
Well, it's just supposed to be kind of an in general. So, you know, when I go to show this one, we'll do it with a lesson that it's obvious for it to show. Because, I mean, you're not going to come in every day and say, hey, you guys are different but the same. You know, it's more making sure your students understand and that they're helping each other, making sure that if there is one student that's a different culture in the class, that he's accepted by the students as a whole.
Sure.
So it's something you're kind of already doing. The only time I'll probably push on it a little bit more is if I have to show that standard. We would choose a lesson like K2, social studies, diversity. But in general, like if you notice students disrespecting each other at all, you should do something about it. But especially when it comes to, you know, being one culture versus the other issue.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I know there are a few students in the classes that, you know, you can see that they're different, but from what I've seen, the students treat them the same way.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not really a problem here.
No.
I think that's more for things like in the U.S. when you're in different schools where it could be more of a problem. Because this is pretty blanket. This is from kindergarten to high school.
Sure.
So then... and lastly is about leadership and collaboration. So how do you get students to collaborate with each other? How do you collaborate with other teachers or family or your colleagues? Meetings. Exactly. Yeah. So we already do like a bunch of that. In terms of leadership, I've been making lots of lessons in leading.
Yeah.
So then that's basically the standards. then some other things we've discussed is like what I'll be teaching for the first week, at least the first week that we'll be recording. So it can be whatever level. I think I'm most comfortable with K2 or K3 just because I know those really well. And the pre-K lessons, some of the students can't even speak in Chinese.
I know.
So I think for the lessons that I have to record, it would be best if it was,
Sure.
K2, K3.
Except for the flexibility one, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. So yeah, my classroom expectations. By now I understand how the classroom works and how the day is set up. So I expect them to behave, but I also know that they're kids and sometimes they don't, and you have to handle it positively when they don't. I understand what the roles of the TA versus the teacher are, what snack time is like, keeping up their healthy habits. I also know students can cry for days on end. That's just pre-K.
Possible.
Following their mom. So our learning standards, I know they vary for each lesson, and they're pretty cross-curricular. So most of them that I would be teaching at least have ELL standards because they're doing them in English. But I know they also go through creative thinking, problem solving.
Will you need a copy of the standards for the program, or
We don't have to submit any. I've already told them it's confidential.
it is?
Because we had times in the past where I had to submit like a lesson that I've created, and I kind of changed it, and I changed the standard. So I made it like a similar concept, but changed the words and just gave one and then said there's other standards being hit. I can't say what they are, but they have to do with these subjects.
Sure.
And they've been understanding because I told them I've signed confidentiality, so I can't really, disclose that.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, and I think that's basically it. They're pretty flexible because they know all of us are teaching in different countries and that all of us have different teaching situations because this program is really meant for people who are already teachers, who are already in the teaching world, that aren't starting from nothing. And they know that, I can't necessarily do the same thing someone in Lebanon can do or vice versa because we do have people in Seoul, in Lebanon, in the States, in Japan, all in our cohort. So,
Okay.
yeah. Any questions?
Nope.
Cool.